Unit 14. Crypt AB/ABSPED, TRO NEO NOVPOS 10 mono uni number words. Crypt comes from the Greek word for hidden. To encrypt a message is to encode it, that is, to hide its meaning in code language. When a scientific term begins with crypto-, it always means that there's something hidden about it. Crypt: 1. A room completely or partly underground, especially under the main floor of a church. 2. A room or area in a large above-ground tomb. His old nightmare was of being locked in a crypt with corpses as his only companions. Hidden under the main floor of a great church is often a large room, often with a tomb as its centerpiece. Many major European churches were built over the remains of a saint. The Vatican's Great St. Peter's Basilica is an example, and instead of having the coffin buried, it was often given its spacious room below ground level. In a large above-ground tomb, or mausoleum, there may be several small chambers for individual coffins, also called crypts. When the comic book Tales from the Crypt made its first appearance in 1950, it was this meaning that the authors were referring to. Encrypt: 1. To convert into cipher. 2. To convert a message into code. Messages on the group's website are encrypted in code words to keep law enforcement agents from understanding them. Codes aren't always in another language. People have always been able to communicate in ways that conceal their real meaning. In countries ruled by dictators, novelists and playwrights have sometimes managed to encrypt their messages, conveying political ideas to their audiences so that the authorities never notice. But encryption today usually refers to a complex procedure performed on electronic text to make sure the wrong people, whether a nation's enemies or a business competitor, most businesses use encryption today, can't read it. And sensitive data that merely resides on a company's own computers is often encrypted as well. Cryptic: 1. Mysterious, puzzlingly short. 2. Acting to hide or conceal. From across the room, Louisa threw Philip a cryptic look, and he puzzled over what she was trying to tell him. Until the writing on the famous Rosetta Stone was finally translated in the early 19th century, Egyptian hieroglyphic writing was entirely cryptic, its meaning hidden from the modern world. In the same way, a cryptic comment is one whose meaning is unclear, and a cryptic note may leave you wondering. Cryptic coloring among plants and animals acts like camouflage, so, for example, some moths that are tasty to blue jays are cryptically colored to look like bugs that jays won't touch. Cryptography: 1. Secret writing. 2. The encoding and decoding of messages. As a graduate student in mathematics, she never dreamed she would end up working in cryptography for the Defense Department. During World War II, cryptography became an extremely complex science for both the Allied and Axis powers. The Allies managed to secretly crack the code produced by the Nazis' Enigma machine, and thereby may have shortened the war by 2 years. The Axis cryptographers, on the other hand, never managed to crack the Americans' ultimate code, the spoken languages of the Navajo and other American Indians. In the age of computers, cryptography has become almost unbelievably complex. It's widely used in peacetime in such areas as banking, telecommunications. AB/ABS comes to us from Latin, and means from, away, or off. Abuse is the use of something in the wrong way. To abduct is to lead away from or kidnap. Aberrant behavior is behavior that wanders away from what is acceptable. But there are so many words that include these roots that it would be absurd to try to list them all here. Abscond: to depart in secret and hide. They discovered the next morning that their guest had absconded with most of the silverware during the night. Wagner's massive 4-part opera, The Ring of the Nibelung, begins with a dwarf absconding with gold, which he turns into a magic ring. And in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins absconds from Gollum's caves with the ring he has found, the ring Gollum calls my precious. What follows is detailed in the 3-volume Lord of the Rings. Tolkien knew Wagner's opera well. A young couple might abscond from their parents to get married, but sooner or later, they must face those parents again. Abstemious restrained, especially in the consumption of food or alcohol. Her parents had left her $2 million when they died, having been so abstemious for years that their neighbors all assumed they were poor. Many 14th century monks lived by the rule of Saint Benedict, which demands an abstemious life of obedience and poverty. But not all monks could maintain such abstemious habits. Chaucer's Canterbury Tales contains a portrait of a fat monk who is supposed to follow a vegetarian diet but instead is an enthusiastic hunter who loves a juicy swan best. He justifies breaking the rule by saying that it's old-fashioned and that he's just keeping up with modern times. Abstemious itself has a slightly old-fashioned sound today, especially in a country where everyone is constantly encouraged to consume. Abstraction, the consideration of a thing or idea without associating it with a particular example. All the ideas she came up with in class were abstractions, since she had no experience of actual nursing at all. From its roots, abstraction should mean basically something pulled or drawn away. So abstract art is art that has moved away from painting objects of the ordinary physical world in order to show something beyond it. Theories are often abstractions, so a theory about economics, for instance, may pull back to take a broad view that somehow explains all of economics, but maybe doesn't end up explaining any of it very successfully. An abstract of a medical or scientific article is a one-paragraph summary of its contents, that is, the basic findings pulled out of the article.